show how unassuming the entrance of this cemetery is. It's just all
Make sure you comment on there too, Dave.
wild, and then there's a nice sidewalk. It's huge.
Yeah.
It's like 6 feet wide.
Remember when we first found it?
So these signs just got put in last winter. You can tell they're brand new. Including the no camping sign over there. This cemetery has been notorious for homeless campsites. So somebody's trying to take care of it. So we're at the South Beach Cemetery in South Beach, Oregon. This cemetery is also called the Newport Cemetery of Yaquina, which the Yaquina Bay is just on the other side of this little hill. We'll show you pictures of that in just a few minutes. So we're gonna head up into the cemetery. It is starting to be taken care of by civic organizations and volunteers. So it's looking a lot better than it was over the past few years. I'm interested to see what it looks like because they just put in new signs in the winter and I haven't been here in probably like 6 or 8 months. So still a little bit overgrown with blackberry kind of creeping over, and be careful.
Sorry if we're shaky a little bit on the video.
It's a well-marked path. There's huckleberry all along. This is, these are natives. Huckleberry. See all the berries on there. And then Gultheria all mixed up in here. There's a native rhododendron. It's a little overgrown, but she's there. I bet she's got great blooms in the spring. And then there's railroad ties and roots, so be careful. Interesting that they're like more blue up here than down in the shade.
Yeah,
they're
right.
Black.
Oh, interesting.
It's getting steep.
You walk, I'll get there.
Awesome. And I know it's not ideal for the trees, but I just love all the moss like dripping off of it. Very cemetery-esque. Looks good, it's clean in here.
Yeah, way cleaner than it used to be. That's nice.
Yeah. This is the Davis lot. This cemetery, are you recording now? Okay. So this cemetery was part of a private property back in the late 1800s, the Davis family. And the first burial on their property was their little girl, a 4-year-old daughter. And she's here somewhere. I'll look for her grave in just a minute. But I just wanted to honor the people who lived here and buried their family here. It looks like it was a private property for a long time, and they allowed some unknown soldiers and unknown sailors to be buried here in accordance with, like, there was a shipwreck and some other reasons. But I appreciate that they allowed that to happen on their property, and then they continued having family buried here. So we'll check out their graves and see who's here.
for the longest time, the cemetery was overgrown, weeds and berry bushes, and was basically uncovered here, what, a few years ago, about 20 years ago or something like that?
Yeah, so it's gone through different years of abandonment, but back in 2009, Solve came through with a big volunteer group and uncovered and rediscovered about 25 graves at that cleanup. And they've just continued to work through the cemetery and find more headstones and more graves and placing names with graves, even if they don't have headstones. It's been an ongoing project because no one really owns this space anymore. It's been just up to the community to take care of.
Well, thank goodness.
So this is Lemuel Davis. He was the owner of this property. This was his property. I appreciate that someone's still honoring him.
Yeah.
With
all these are somewhat recent.
Hmm?
A bunch of somewhat recent flowers over here. Somewhat recent flowers.
Yeah, there are some recent flowers in here. Looks like they're all from the same group. This is L.E. Davis. I'm looking for Mary. So there's Zenas Davis. It's really cool because this is one of Mary Jane and Mr. Davis's son. But in 1880 to current day, there's only been 6 males named Zenas, according to my Google research. That's James. Catherine. You think that Mary would be here with the mule? Maybe she's just unmarked?
Could be. Hard to say.
I'm just gonna go down this little trail and see what we can see. It's very overgrown on the edges, but there's a very clear trail going to the other side of the hill, and not seeing any obvious headstones. If there are any, they haven't been revealed. So I'm gonna go back up because I do know that there's headstones closer to the top of this hill. So I'll go check that out. This is another baby, just a few years old. It's an unmarked. It's also unmarked. I can't tell. It's not unmarked, but I can't see what it says. So, and then there's tons of these. They were temporary markers that would have had a piece of paper in it with the person's name and dates. And they were meant to just be a place marker before they got their headstones, but apparently they never got their headstones. So we're back at the Davis lot and just keep exploring a little bit. This headstone is from 1895. This one is from 1924.
War guy. This is a war guy from 1895.
Yeah.
Crazy.
This.
Oh, babe, up here.
Go this way. There's two trails that lead up into kind of a forest, and there's some headstones up in there.
One.
So there's some. I remember the last time I was here, there was actually a metal marker in this space. There's just a flag there now. There is kind of a, you could see this was, it had that little metal plaque on it, which is missing now.
I don't see
I'm just gonna continue up this trail. We are literally like, I'm bent in half to get up to this section. And I think it wraps around and meets. Maybe not. Let's just go the other way.
Yeah.
It looks a little too overgrown. You can see this low branch right here. I have to like climb underneath that and keep going. Let's go back down and ooh, oh, there's a nice widowmaker there. You see that branch is broken, big heavy branch. Those are called widowmakers because if something big like that falls down on our head, it creates a widow.
You got this.
Okay. Kind of appropriate and inappropriate for the cemetery to have widowmakers.
I'm coming.
Person can get lost in there.
Yeah, you're not kidding.
All right, we're gonna climb up this way. This one seems a little more clear and a little more used. There's a little, it looks like it would have maybe been a family lot, but only Ruby Omelette is in there. And her parents are actually buried at the Eureka Cemetery across the bridge in Newport, Oregon.
This one.
We're at the top of the cemetery now. You can barely get glimpses of the Pacific Ocean from here nowadays because all of these trees are in the way, where at one time there was a clear view of the Yaquina Bay, and on more clear days you could see that this is actually water, and kind of, well, it's above this roof line, there's water, but it's really hard to tell. It's kind of foggy today. But beautiful, beautiful cemetery. Just kind of wild and natural, and yet cared for in some way. So I wasn't able to find Mary Ellen Davis, so I'm going to leave her flowers with her husband. I think he pronounced it Lemuel. It's like Samuel, but Lemuel. Really interesting. I really want to know how to pronounce it correctly. Anyway, I couldn't find her headstone, and their little daughter, who was buried here first, doesn't have a headstone. Mary Ellen and her husband were both, well, I'm wrong. On Find a Grave, it says that she was buried in, or that she passed away in 1913. And it also says that he was buried in 1913, but his headstone says 1917. By the way, if you're on Find a Grave and you are volunteering to enter information, please, please do your research. Don't make assumptions and put in whatever you think might be happening, because this cemetery in particular, which I have not come across in any other cemetery, but this particular cemetery has spouses and children and families all mixed up in to the extent of even naming a 3-year-old boy as the spouse of a 69-year-old man who passed. So, and I mean, the 3-year-old is also passed here, but obviously they were not married, and they have different last names, so I don't know if it was actually his child. There's no way for me to know that without doing further research, and it's really disappointing that it's put into that program as fact when that's a real obvious mistake. And there were other mistakes that were pretty obvious to me. And then the other thing that I found consistently with this Find a Grave at this particular cemetery was that people were placed in there twice, because somebody would put that person in with just really basic information, and then somebody would put that same person in with extensive amounts of information, and they weren't cross-referencing to see if that person was already there, just to be updated. So please, if you're on Find a Grave or A Billion Graves or any of those Roots Web, any of those types of programs that help us research our ancestors, please try to make sure that your entries are as accurate as possible. Because that helps everybody in the long run, and it honors their memory rather than chopping it up into a bunch of pieces. So anyway, I have some mums here. I've talked about mums before. Chrysanthemums, they are a traditional flower to put on graves in Europe. In the US, they typically represent encouragement and get well, but in Europe they're exclusive for graveside placement. We're going back down. See the steep hill just getting out of here. It's like a hike.